Okay, so we learned the basic properties of linear programming methods and linear optimization, how to put together a mathematical programming model, right? So the first step is to identify the decision variables, the second step is to identify the objective function, the third step is to identify all the constraints, and the fourth step is to put together all of these in mathematical format. So if you fail in any of these steps, especially in the second one, third one, and the fourth one, you always go back to the first step, which is to redefine your decision variables. So there are lots of application areas of optimization, especially linear optimization, and these are just a couple of them. Product mix, process selection, blending, portfolio selection, transportation, multi-period production planning, financial management, and product marketing. So let's take a look at what decision variables and objective function and typical constraints might be in each one of them. For example, in the transportation problem, so the decision variables are usually the ones that the amount to ship between sources of supply and destination. So those are the decisions that we can make. So you can define your decision variables accordingly. The objective function is usually to minimize the total transportation cost, or you can maximize your profit if you have the data for. Okay, and the typical constraints are going to be the limited availability at sources, required demands met at destinations, or you might have a capacitated arcs or edges, or the elements that connect your source and destinations, or supply points and destination points. Another example can be from multi-period production planning. So those are usually the inventory problems. So remember, you might keep stock for a specific period for a specific unit, or you can sell everything, right? So usually the decision variables are the quantities of product to produce in each several time periods. Okay, you have to control how much you produce, right? And then how much you keep in inventory between periods, right? So the traditional or most likely objective function is to minimize the total production and inventory costs. And the typical constraints are the limited production rates, material balance equations. So we will take a quick look at what these equations are. And there might be several other examples, and this chart does a great job explaining what might be the decision variables, objective function, and typical constraints for each of these application areas of linear programming or linear optimization. These are several constraint categories that you can see.